Well, good evening. Good eve. Let's say hello. Hello. Oh, there we go. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, October 28th, 2019 meeting of the Durham County Board of Commissioners. I will now share the public charge. The Board of Commissioners asks its members and citizens to conduct themselves in a respectful, courteous manner, both with the board and fellow citizens. At any time, should any member of the board or any citizen fail to observe this public charge, the chair will ask the offending person to leave the meeting until that individual regains personal control. Should decorum fail to be restored, the chair will recess the meeting until such time that a genuine commitment to the public charge is observed. As a courtesy to others, please turn off cell phones during the meeting. And I will now ask that we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have any agenda adjustments? Seeing none, I'll move on to the announcements. Durham County Recycles app. The Decode General Services Department has announced the launch of a new mobile application that makes it easier for county residents to stay connected about waste and recycling collection programs. And you can download this for free on Apple or Android devices. If you don't have a smartphone, you can also visit www.doconc.gov/recycling, and you can search for your home address to sign up and for reminders, and you can download and print your schedule. I can vouch that this works. I got my message reminding me to leave my recycling out. So for county residents like me who actually live in the unincorporated areas, it is great. Durham Homicide and Victims of Violent Death Memorial Quilt will be on display at our Durham County Human Services Building beginning November 4th through 30th. Sydney Brody, who's actually here with us tonight, a native of Durham, will be displaying his work at the Durham County Human Services Building located at 414 East Main Street. Each square on the quilt has been designed to memorialize every life that has been lost to gun violence in our community since, I want to say 1999, is that the correct? 1994. So unfortunately, it is a very long quilt. It will be, we're going to have the honor of having this piece of art and also this memorial to our community. Again, will be on the ground floor of the Health and Human Services building. I want to recognize Linda, who in the back, Linda Seguro, can you please wave too, who has worked so hard, and all the staff that worked on this, because we had to get the fire marshal's approval, and there were just a lot of different things to overcome, and it was really teamwork and perseverance that found a win-win solution. I also want to invite everyone to, this is not on the schedule because we actually just planned it today, but the word will get out. On next Thursday, November 6th, Thursday night from 6 to 7 p.m. in Conference Room C at our Health and Human Services building is going to be a program about the quilt and for the opening of the quilt.
Thursday would be November 7th.
Okay.
So it's Wednesday.
Okay, it's
6th.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay, it's Wednesday. Thank you. So I need to correct some of the things I've put out already, right? Wednesday, November 6th, 6 to 7 p.m. and we welcome everybody to come. Come hear about the future of 300 and 500 blocks of East Main Street. We have selected Laurel Street and Zom Living to execute the community's vision for 2 county-owned lots. The proposed plan includes a mix of affordable and market rate units, commercial space, and parking for tenants and county employees. There are going to be 2 sessions where we really welcome people to come out and meet the developers. Saturday, November 2nd, 10 a.m. at Holton Career and Resource Center, 401 North Driver Street. And Tuesday, November 12th, 7 p.m. at our Durham County Human Services Building, 414 East Main Street. The health insurance marketplace open enrollment period is starting. It is going to be November 1st through December 15th. This is really important because if you notice something, it's really short. Only 6 weeks. In the past, we have had months for people to get enrolled. So we really want to get the word out to people about this open enrollment period. You can go to healthcare.gov, which will help people who do not get coverage from their job, and it offers this plan will offer financial assistance for families with incomes from 100% to 400% of the federal poverty level. And most who buy coverage on this federal marketplace will pay between $50 and $100 per month. You can also visit www.healthcare.gov. Also, you can call 1-800-318-2596, which is the Marketplace Call Center. And we'll have all of this information on our website. Annual Veterans Day celebration will be on Friday, November 8th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., which is at our Durham County Health and Human Services Building, 414 East Main Street. This is a free event for all of the veterans and their family members and supporters to please come out. It's one of the few times that we really get to celebrate and honor our veterans each year. Engage Durham will host its first community workshop for our revising of our new comprehensive land use plan and also the Durham County Transit Plan. We really want to hear from people who live, work, own a business, go to school, or simply care about the future of Durham. And these workshops will be going from November 14th through 19th. There's free childcare, refreshments at all of these workshops. And the first one is coming up Thursday, November 14th, 7 to 9 p.m. at Hillside High School. So that there's also going to be more information about this on our website. Next, we have the minutes. Oh, and I should ask, any other announcements from anyone? Commissioner Reckow.
Well, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that particularly with our focus on expanding pre-K, I was delighted to attend the ribbon cutting for a new child care center in Research Triangle Park Thursday around lunchtime. And it's at Biogen. And it's only the 3rd employer-based child care center in Research Triangle Park. I want to commend the company. It is state-of-the-art. They went in and renovated a space that originally had been designed for office space. They did a fantastic job, terrific outdoor play area. What I really loved is that in addition to the regular classrooms, they have a large multi-purpose space with a STEM focus, with lots of manipulatives for children from 1 through 5 to play safely in. It's great space for teachers to, do a change of pace with their students during the day, or if it's raining outside and they can't get outside, there's this large space that the kids can move around in. Wonderful setting and just a great asset. And we should really celebrate employers who step up and help be part of the solutions. I was very glad to see
Absolutely, and
it.
I was sorry that I could not attend that, but that's fantastic. Commissioner Howerton?
So I'm grateful that Commissioner Reckel had a chance to get there and tour. I got there early, and I didn't get the change in time.
Oh,
So I was there, and I didn't get a full tour, but I had the opportunity to see a little bit of it. So by the time 11 o'clock came, I was gone.
I was a little after 11.
but you're absolutely right. We have a goal of universal access to high-quality pre-K for every child in our community, and we need everybody to share in that goal. So it's fantastic when the business community steps up and supports their employees and our whole community by doing that. So, and it's also an asset for them to attract talent and have a good work environment. So we have our minutes from our regular session, September 23rd, 2019.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by, was it?
The other way
No,
around.
moved by Commissioner Howerton, seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the minutes are unanimously approved. I do want to actually, would like to have, entertain a motion to give Commissioner Hill an excused absence for this
So
evening.
moved.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Carter. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that has been approved. Related to the minutes, I do want to follow up, Mr. Manager, because a lot of the minutes were about the implementation of the compensation study, and just wanted to check and see where that was at, whether that has been implemented. I know it was going to be retroactive. You know where we're at with that process?
The initial recommendation for the implementation of the compensation study, given the presentation that day from staff and the consultant, was that we would look at the first pay period number.
Okay.
We have sent that conversations with our finance officer, recognizing that that time that and so we're going to back it up to the last period number, about ample time in the
Okay, great. And that'll be retroactive to September, right?
it will.
Okay, terrific. Okay, we have some ceremonial items this evening. And first, we have a proclamation honoring the dedication and work of Sydney Brody. So Sydney, if you don't mind, please coming to the podium here this evening. So I will first read the proclamation, and then we would love to hear some words from you. Durham Board of County Commissioners Proclamation honoring the dedication and work of Sydney Brody, 2019. Whereas the Durham County Board of Commissioners recognizes that violent crime and gun violence are a public health crisis. And whereas Sydney Brody, a lifelong Durham resident, was inspired to take action after a 2-year-old girl was shot and killed by playing on a neighbor's porch. And whereas in 1996, Sydney Brody created the Durham Homicide and Victims of Violent Death Memorial Quilt to honor those lost to violence. And whereas Sydney Brody sews 1 new square by hand onto the quilt every time a person is killed in Durham, in remembrance of the victims. And whereas Sidney Brody has devoted his life to illuminating the destructive outcome of fear and despair, to helping Durham citizens pay attention to the problem and begin conversations to end the violence, and whereas Sidney Brody's tremendous personal sacrifices and continuing dedication to making Durham a safer community for all its residents exemplifies how one individual can make a difference. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Wendy Jacobs, Chair of the Durham Board of County Commissioners, and on behalf of the Durham Board of County Commissioners, do hereby recognize and honor the dedication and remarkable life's work of Sidney Brody, and call on the residents of Durham County to join us in honoring Sidney Brody's legacy by working together to find ways to end violence in Durham. This 28th day of October 2019, Wendy Jacobs, Chair, Durham Board of County Commissioners.
Wow. Thank you, guys. It all started, if you can just imagine, just wanting to see more people involved in finding answers to the problems that we have seen in Durham, and not just Durham, but across the nation regarding violence, and in particular gun violence. To want to see more people involved. That was my initial idea. If I can get more people to notice, to take notice at what is happening, maybe we can bring on some people with talents. And people have all different kinds of talents. I can only do what I do. But just think about motivating an entire city. My goal is for every family in Durham to see this quilt over the next 2 years. And I said that 3 years ago. There are a lot of people that still don't know about this quilt. And at this point, I have people even from other cities reaching out because they've heard about the quilt. So on next week, you're going to have a chance to actually experience what has been gathered here over the past 26 years with this quilt. And I'll be there available for you to answer questions, to explain my tenacity and why I've stuck with it all this time. I'd like to thank commissioners, Madam Jacobs here, for seeing what you saw the time that you have seen the quilt, and with the conversations that we've had, and I think you've seen the documentary. So as you know, there's been some struggles over the past 20-some years to bring this to Durham, but I am dedicated. But at some point, I do want to hang this quilt up for good and maybe put it in a museum somewhere, because it can't continue to grow, because unfortunately, this is not going to stop overnight. We don't know how much longer we're going to deal with this type of loss of life in Durham, as well as across the nation. But something is going on, and we need to get to the bottom of it. And I just appreciate you for making my job a little bit easier with what you've done here tonight. I thank you.
Well, don't go anywhere yet. Don't go anywhere. Well, Sidney, before you start moving over here, well, you can move if you want. I won't stop you. But I just want to also recognize your sister who's here. Is that right? Who's here tonight? And I don't know if there's anyone else here that you want to. No. Okay. Well, I just also want to let people know that there's a documentary about Sydney's life and the quilt that we're also going to be running on our monitors over the month of November as well, so people can see that. But I just want to say that I had seen the quilt at some events over at McDougall Terrace, at festivals. You bring it all over the place, which is just a huge undertaking in itself, unfortunately, because of how big it is. But also, I just want to say this is one of why I love being a county commissioner, because I get to meet people like Sydney. And it was after we had the press conference after the death of Zion Pearson that I actually met Sydney in the parking lot that day. And so we spoke, and then we started working together and came up with a plan of how we were going to make sure we brought the quilt to Durham County. So, so thank you, Sydney.
I'd like to say something. So, Sydney, so I've seen your quilt quite a bit. To me, it's not a quilt. To me, it's the lives of our children and their families, and it extends far beyond just the quilt. That every time I see that quilt, my heart just aches, as you know, that a family has been ripped apart in ways that cannot be put back together. So thank you for bringing attention to what's happening here in Durham, that it is ripping parents apart. And it's when that part of the crisis is over and they bury the child, then they're constantly brought back to it by having to go through the legal system. But it's never over. So one of the things I hate is when somebody says to you, you should be over it by now. They don't know. But you know what I'm talking about. Thank you. I'll just go around there.
So next we are recognizing one of our awesome Bulls City United workers, Keisha Gray. Keisha, would you please come up here? And anyone else that you want to bring with you? We're recognizing Keisha for receiving the 2019 Willis Young Memorial Award on the front lines of violence. The Willis Young Memorial Award is for outstanding work on the front lines of violence It's presented to an individual who has exhibited extraordinary commitment and passion in their work. Keisha Queen Gray has exemplified that as being the only female on an all-male team who has used her connections to walk through grief and provide resources for hundreds in the Durham community. As mentioned on her nomination form, Ms. Gray, in collaboration with the Duke University medical team, introduced a Stop the Bleed and Save a Life class in targeted areas. And through this class, a 14-year-old was able to help save her cousin's life from a gunshot wound. And Keisha received this award at the Healing Justice Alliance annual conference that was held in Sacramento, California. So Keisha, we really are so proud of you, and we just want to thank you for your work and really celebrate and recognize this award for you today. And we'd also love to hear some words from you.
I am truly humbled. I have to thank Christ Jesus first and foremost, who I bring with me every single day to this job. And I really can't call it a job. It's more of a service, Durham County and her citizens. I want to thank my team. Today is bittersweet because today is the day that a year ago one of our team members passed away from the original team. So today is bittersweet because I take Lewis McCallum with me always. I have to thank David because he was the one that did the nomination in which I won the award, as well as Convelis and Darrell, Matthew, and Carlos, who's on the team. And Darrell is now the supervisor of the FIT program at Durham County Public Health. I do need to thank my sister, Demetrius, and my children. They're at work, and I have my 10-year-old here who tells me, you know, when I have to run out the door, just come back, Mommy. And, you know, it means a lot for a 10-year-old to know how dangerous your job is. I have to thank Ms. Gail Harris, who sharpened me and others in this program. She started it off. She researched one day, and I used to joke with her about how she found this program, and I asked her, I said, was you up shopping in the middle of the night? And so she said, no, I was worried about my county, my people who are plagued of gun violence. So she was the one who actually started the research of it. And I'm totally indebted to her for changing my life as well as my team life. I have to thank Durham County's, what I believe is Durham County's Elijah Cummings, Mr. Wendell Davis. Yes, he means to Durham County.
I think he just got shot.
What Baltimore meant to Mr. Cummings and vice versa. We couldn't be who we are without Mr. Davis and Ms. Gale's support to bring this program to Durham County. And just to see young men change over and over and not give up and have hope means a lot to the ones who are just trying to change their life and do away with gun violence. I definitely have to thank you all, the Board of Commissioners. Mr. Lowell is something special. It's not a day that I don't come across you and not feel some type of compassion and kindness. While we speaking on Mr. Cummings, I watched his services, and I seen how the staff and the employees that were so committed to him, and he was so of them, the committed heart that makes, Baltimore work, has now gave me confirmation of how we are all in this together as such, as Baltimore. Mr. Hill and Commissioner Hill, I think of his kindness and compassion to all. The staff talked about the bridges to connect, and that's Ms. Jacobs. I thought of you when they talked about that. Ms. Ellen, the portion that they said value friendship. You are valued in Durham County, and we thank you for your services. Thank you so much. And one other thing they said was share the ball, believe in others, give them a chance to lead, to tell their story, because it's theirs and not yours, and it needs to be heard. Meeting 3 generations of homelessness, age 18, 30, and 50 years old, made me want to do more, because I truly was knocking at homelessness door not long ago. Commissioner Heidi, thank you for bringing this to light to me, 3 generations, and to know the work that you're doing with women of color and homelessness prevention means so much to me. I now have a new family of brave young women that I would love to help and join, so please count on me. Lastly, work through your pain is what the staff talked about. Commissioner Howerton, working through your pain, even when it hurts, love will transcend, thank you, transcend in the darkest times. Your pain gives us hope that we all need. They too will be good cheers, although it hurt. Thank you for your service. To the community investors, Matt Gutierrez, residents, and the community shareholders, all my participants, they keep me humble of service. Seeing full-time employees, adult high school graduates, and trades keep BCU pushing. I look forward to more elevation with the board and Durham County. I also like to thank my Deputy Director, Tara Blackley, and the entire Durham County staff and public health. Mel Shule, Kewan Hester, Linda Dixon, Sheriff Clarence Burkhead, Pearlie Turner, BJ Smith, Marvin and Tracy Bagley, Tori Green, Project Bill Team, Ashley Perkins, and Sherry Rogers of Durham County Social Services, and that's Miss Ashley here. Ashley helped homeless prevention as well. She not only helped 50 young men do applications with the Durham City, but they actually got the job as well. So I don't do this alone. I promise y'all I don't. It weighs, so I have no problem sharing my plate with anyone that's going to help the community. So thank you, Ashley. I also need to thank Durham County Social Services, Roy Hubbard, Duke University Medical Center, and Stop the Bleed. And this Thursday, we are hosting our first DEAR program to do expungements for young men of background that is hindering job placements as well as driver license to get the job. So BCU is on the trail of doing changing lives still. So I just want to leave y'all with this. I am Keisha. I am Bull City bred. I'm Bull City United fed. And while gun violence is still plaguing my city, I am going to go to back until I'm Bull City dead. So thank y'all for everything.
Madam Chair. So I have a letter here that I want to mention a couple of things. This is a letter that David wrote for Keisha to get the award. He can't be here tonight, so I'd like to just mention a few things that he wrote. And he calls her Queen. So Queen is a gun lock safety team for Durham County Public Health, whereas she connects with the Duke University medical team. The medical team wanted to teach adults to stop the bleed. The hospital teams were not able to give service since they do not have the relationship in the hood or felt safe enough to offer the classes until Queen planned and introduced Stop the Bleed and Save a Life to the target areas. Queen persuaded high-risk individuals to come learn how to save their friends' lives that rapidly became a monthly class in both governed areas. As it grew with the adults, Queen went a step farther by convincing the medical team to teach the kids in McDougall Terrace housing community. Giving facts and statistics and stats, Queen still met some resistance. However, Queen would not take no as a solution. Queen encouraged numerous residents to take the class, including teens accomplished with their parents. In so doing this, a 14-year-old took the class and saved her cousin's life. I have pasted a clip, and he pasted a clip of that story, and we've mentioned it here before. Since then, Queen has influenced other housing communities to bring the class to their community. So he really went on in this description to talk about the things that she really did. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Commissioner Howerton. And I just want to recognize, Keisha, that how beautiful everything that you just said and just shared with us, and just exemplifies who you are and how you are able to connect with so many people to really help transform people's lives. So we really appreciate everything that you do, and really thinking about what Sydney is working on and the connection between what we're talking about tonight and even what we'll be talking about in a minute, because you need to connect with Made in Durham because they're focusing on getting our youth into jobs. And that's what you're working on too. So hopefully you all will connect tonight as well, and working together, we will stop the violence and make sure that everybody is flourishing in our community. Thank you. So thank you again. So now we are going to watch a short video from the youth-led Made in Durham event on May 7th, 2019, and then we will also adopt a resolution. And just while we're getting ready for the video, okay, here we go.
Hey man, we are live at the Made in Durham annual partnership luncheon.
My name is Casey Steinbacher. I promised the youth there would be no adults on stage.
Things for me could have totally been different.
I fell asleep in my third period.
There are more stories like mine.
Representing us.
Bias doesn't simply exist between black and white students.
It's like we all were more connected, though they differ from me.
It can exist between any group that has a position of power against a group that doesn't have a position of power.
No fear of an ICE raid or poverty hustling.
Made in Durham helps me make my dreams of leadership come true.
So the most memorable part from the panel for me was probably when Jay talked about her inspiration for being a writer.
Durham needs to scale these initiatives and work harder to address the root cause of disconnection.
What we need is for the young people talking to the economic development folks and telling them what we need for Durham County.
No obstacles in my path, cause the city paved potholes.
I don't remember saying that.
Using data to inform their action plans.
It's about 70% African American and 30% Latinx.
The equity lens that they view the world through that I think, previous generations could learn a lot from.
What if every immigrant's protected and our equity's expected?
It's making sure that when we're tackling problems, it comes along with the racial equity lens.
The inclusion and focus on equity.
Which isn't necessarily present currently.
One thing that inspired me to be an author was just taking my personal experiences and being able to kind of exaggerate them to bring light and awareness to like some situations that someone can relate to.
Teaches all of us about that resilience.
They need adults to be allies in their lives and support them, and it was just wonderful to hear their ideas.
These people really have changed like my life.
If one of these students have one teacher that actually cares for them, they could be like me as well.
One teacher changed the trajectory of his life.
I will continue to support Made in Durham.
And all the groups that it brings together around these kids.
Together we can improve youth outcomes.
Make this place a wonderful Durham that we know it can be. Peace.
That was awesome. Really captured a very inspiring event. And yes, we know who needs to lead the way. And it's not us adults. So I don't know, Casey, who you want to come up, or if all of you want to come up, or please, we welcome. I know you've got a whole team of people here tonight, so I would also welcome you to recognize everyone who's here.
We will, I think.
Okay, and
Why don't we read the resolution?
Heidi has a resolution to read.
It might be the second longest resolution in America. I think the first longest was about our trauma-informed community, but this is an excellent resolution. It's my honor to read it. Durham Board of County Commissioners resolution in support of a Durham work-based learning collaborative community awareness campaign. Whereas Durham enjoys a thriving economy and a 2018 mean family income of $102,861, and yet 1 in 5 Durham families with children still live in poverty. And whereas in 2018, Durham saw 5.4% wage growth and the highest weekly wages paid in the state of North Carolina, but the percentage of jobs held by Durham residents decreased. And whereas children in the lowest income quintile have a 39% chance of staying there as adults, and without both high demand skills and education and access to good jobs in the local economy, their odds are unlikely to improve. And whereas since Durham is part of a regional economy with full employment levels, the youth talent pipeline is critical to Durham's future growth. And whereas, with North Carolina projected to add more than 550,000 jobs by 2024, and Durham experiencing twice the rate of job growth of the United States last year, identifying sources of future talent is critical to continued economic development. And whereas improving outcomes for Durham youth will depend upon our ability to both prepare and connect Durham's young adults as future employers in the local economy, also ensuring Durham's continued competitive advantage in attracting and retaining high-growth industries. And whereas understanding this challenge, key partners in the public, private, and philanthropic communities in Durham have been working on a strategy aimed at increasing educational and career readiness for all Durham youth age 14 to 24. And whereas this strategy calls for a community-wide effort to build a quality-based, work-based learning system that focuses on career, adds relevance to school, and begins to address inequalities in Durham's labor market. And whereas work-based learning is a proven strategy benefiting both employers and youth by preparing young adults for work through career awareness, exposure, and experiences. And whereas work-based learning programs have shown participating minority students enrolling in college at twice the rate of non-participating minority students. And whereas students who participate in work-based learning receive higher post-secondary GPAs and are they're more likely to be employed after graduation. And whereas employers who participate in work-based learning programs can generate their own highly skilled workers internally, developing a more reliable local talent pipeline for their business while also increasing their brand awareness among youth and the larger community. And whereas, though many agencies, schools, and nonprofits in Durham have been independently using work-based learning as a tool to promote college and career readiness, much room remains for improved collaboration. And whereas, building on the existing youth work program funded by the city, Durham County, and Durham Public Schools, and the new DPS 321 program, a new collaborative was formed, the Durham Work-Based Learning Collaborative. And whereas Made in Durham convened the collaborative that now has 17 organizations in Durham working together to meet the needs of Durham's youth and employers with a unified set of goals and outcomes. And whereas the Durham Work-Based Learning Collaborative is conducting a 6-month public awareness campaign around the benefits and opportunities that the programs in the Durham Work-Based Learning Collaborative can provide to both Durham youth and employers. And whereas this campaign is designed to inform youth, parents, and employers about work-based learning and encourage everyone to participate. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Durham County Board of County Commissioners that the Durham Work-Based Learning Collaborative is an important initiative for Durham's successful economic development, and that the Board of County Commissioners do hereby strongly support the campaign to educate and encourage students, parents, and employers to actively participate in the opportunities to learn about the benefits and programs offering work-based learning in Durham as a critical component to our vision of a shared prosperity for all of Durham's residents. This 28th day of October, 2019, with places for all of our signatures.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it was rather long, but as you know, it is a community awareness campaign, and this was free TV time. So thank you very much for that public awareness address. We greatly appreciate it. I'm Casey Steinbacher. I'm Executive Director of Made in Durham. And I am going to be very quick because I know you have a long agenda here. And quite frankly, I don't know what I could say or how I could say it any better than what Keisha and Sydney said here a few minutes ago. It takes a village. It takes all of us working together on making this happen. And that's what the Durham Work-Based Learning Collaborative is about. It's about bringing together all the organizations in Durham, whether they're public sector, private sector, philanthropic, foundations, whatever it is, in the 14 to 24 space to come together and figure out how we make sure that every child in Durham has the opportunity to understand and be prepared for work. And then, quite frankly, another big piece is connected to the opportunity. We know that. Every bit of research shows that's what it is we have to do. We have to prepare, and we have to provide the social capital that a lot of our youth do not have in Durham and connect them in that piece. So what we've taken on and Made in Durham is to do this 6-month campaign. We're talking to, by the way, everybody listening to us tonight and in the audience, we'd love to come speak to any organization, any parent group, any church group, anyone that wants to hear about what it is that we're doing, how they can get involved, how their youth can get involved, how their school can get involved, how their employers can get involved. We've been doing that for about 4 weeks now. We were in our 4th week of the program. It started in October, and it's being incredibly well received. And we're excited to do this, and we thank you very much for doing that. I want to have our entire team stand up, guys, stand up. By the way, we're up to 18 nonprofit organizations and groups, but this is part of our team here right now, representing our public sector, Durham Public Schools, Partnerships for Youth Opportunities. Daniel, raise your hand, Daniel. You saw Daniel you saw him in the video. He's our student representative at Made in Durham. Everything we do has student representatives on it that inform all of our work that we do. Daniel has been instrumental in actually helping us create the program and specifically the programmatic work that we want to do. And I just want to thank all of them for the hard work they do and thank all of you for giving us this 5 minutes of fame so that we can continue to tell the message to all the people in Durham. Oh, yes, yes. I should talk about that as part of our initial coming out party here in October. We participated with Durham Magazine. You will find an 8-page story about youth in Durham that have had the opportunity to do a work-based learning opportunity, an internship at some company, and they range in age from 14 years old to 24 years old. We actually hired, Durham Magazine actually hired an intern through the summer youth program, and that intern then followed those youth through the summer in the internship programs and wrote about the experience from both the youth side and the employer side. We also did a bunch of extra copies of those so that we can provide those to any organization you have that might be interested, along with some postcards about how you can sign up for the event. So thank you for that, Commissioner. We greatly appreciate it. And I just want to publicly, if we can, thank all of these incredible people that do this every day, like Keisha and Sydney do, to really make a difference in Durham. We're just the convener of the conversations. These are the people that do the real work. So thank you for that.
Madam Chair, I am so pleased to have this resolution and see all the partners. You know, we have all the ingredients in Durham to soar, and when we've had outside groups look at what was wrong, they always said, well, we're resource rich, but we've got to come together and work together. And I'm so pleased, Casey, that you finally seem to have corralled all the key players, taking a big tent approach. And I think by everyone working together, great things can happen. And so I'm really pleased to see this because I think we're positioned to really move forward well. So thank you for all your efforts.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, and I just want to echo, you know, we know what we need to do, and Casey, I think, has said it really well, that we have to create a system. And so with us working on the early childhood piece and, you know, making sure that our children are starting out right, then getting into K through 12, what's happening now within Durham Public Schools and the 3-2-1 curriculum, and going on to having these work experiences, going on to Durham Tech or otherwise. And, you know, we're doing a lot to support Durham Tech. So really cementing that pipeline so that, as you said, people are prepared, our youth are prepared, and then they're connected.
One last thing I should probably say. We shouldn't assume that everyone knows about the 3-2-1 program. And I'm not going to get into it in great detail here, but what I do want to make sure is that everyone here today and everyone listening understands that we now have a requirement inside Durham Public Schools in which all youth have the opportunity for career awareness, career exposure, and career experiences before they graduate. It is a graduation requirement. So this is a wonderful opportunity for us to actually be able to connect our youth in a way that they will be able to be prepared and then get connected based on these experiences that they have. So not everyone, I think, fully understands that we've launched that program as of September of this year. So we have 2,500 freshmen that we're trying to find opportunities and experiences for anybody out there that would like to help Durham Public Schools fill that need. So please feel free to reach out to Made in Durham on our webpage, madeindurham.org. We're happy to come meet with anyone that might be interested. And thank you, commissioners, for this.
Thank you.
Do a fist bump.
Felt a little bit better? You doing?
So Casey, we'll email you the, well, we have Commissioner Hill's signature is not on it, so you can email that, right? Yeah, we'll take care of it and email it to you. Okay, thank you all.
Bye-bye.
So, some more good, another great recognition tonight is that Durham County government has been recognized by the Public Technology Institute as a recipient of the 2019 PTI Solutions Award for its use of predictive analytics to strengthen the county's foster care effort. And I know we've got Brendan here. We've got Greg. Is Greg still here? Oh, Greg, you're here. Everyone who's been involved, please, we want to recognize you all, and please come up. The whole team, because I know it took a team to work on this. And also Ben Rose, our interim general manager and DSS director. So I would love to, I don't know who wants to be the person to explain what this is all about, but I got to hear about it at our DSS board meeting, but Ben, we welcome you to tell us more about this important award.
Thank you so much, Commissioners, and thank you for taking time to recognize this beautiful award. I'll get us started, but I really want you to hear from the people that made this happen. But basically, we are starting to really explore the area of predictive analytics within child welfare. It's an area that we want to get into. There have been counties across the country that have started to do some work in this area. So we started with a baby step in looking at how we could predict our future resource needs through predictive analytics. So we looked at the number of kids that have come into care historically, what the patterns and trends we've been seeing, both in Durham County and statewide. And we've been able to project out what we think we may see over the next 5 and 10 years. And this will help us with our budget planning. It helps us bring you good data when we come to you for budgetary needs. And it helps us plan for service needs as well, too, because the goal for our department is to partner with our community to try to meet the needs of the children in care and get them to a good place. So it's been really exciting seeing this developed. It started really with Rebecca and Brandon and our kind of brainstorming these concepts, and then to see it kind of roll and come to fruition was really amazing. And we actually used some of this data in our budget last year to start to show what we might be looking at in the future. And the next step, my hope is that we can start to take this into practice in terms of our case management work. Looking at when we get a report, being able to tell based on the report what we might be facing with this family, what resources we may need, what trends we may start to see, so we can start to do upstream and preventive services maybe more, especially when we get to the point, and hopefully in 2021, when we can start to do more prevention services with our Title IV dollars. So it's a very exciting arena. It's complicated, it's complex, it takes a lot of technology and a lot of brain power, a lot more than I have. That's why I've got a great team of all these folks here that made this happen. So these are the folks I really would like you to hear from. So I will step aside and let them share.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. The prediction analytics is a very interesting area for us to move into, and trying to predict what our costs are going to be, but also staffing needs and what needs we need for our children. It also goes all the way to the point of bringing in some revenues too, because each foster care case brings in 2 child support cases. So it has brought several programs within DSS working together. Assistant Director Jovetta Whitfield, who I don't think she made it tonight, was a very important part with helping to provide the data that we needed for this project moving forward. Rebecca Hardigan was, at that time, was with DSS. She is now with County IS&T. And Brian Wasowski was working with all the data and pulling it together and presenting it and putting it in dashboards. There was a tremendous amount of work that was going back and forth between all of us, trying to come up with something that made sense and something that we could reproduce across the state using other people's data to make sure that what we were representing was truthful and accurate. But I also want to thank the help from County IS&T. Without their direction and their support on this project and helping us work through it, we would not have been able to do this project. And we're going to continue doing this moving forward. And also the leadership that we have from our director, Ben Rose, and our deputy director, Kathy.
Catherine Williamson Hardy.
Thank you. Always get that messed up. But anyways, allowing us to take this direction, this new step into a new direction is very, very helpful and very promising and very supportive as a leadership, and want to definitely take time to thank them for that.
I just want to say thank you to County IT. When Brandon told me that we need to do this, we need to think of a better way to use data. It was all about budget. And I really felt like working with Brian, we were just doing our jobs. I didn't really think that it could turn into this and turn into an award and to turn into something that we can continue to use year over year and really make an impact on foster care for the citizens of Durham County. So I just want to say thanks to Les and County IS&T for that partnership. And it's all really about collaboration, as the Made in Durham presentation showed. That's really what it's all about. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you doing? On behalf of IS&T, and I guess the topic of predictive analytics, had I been able to predict I would actually be asked to say a few words tonight, that would have been better. With my boss, Greg Mara, sitting there, I guess I better do a good job here. So predictive analytics, I guess this has been a buzzword for a long, long time, and not many people are very good at it. If you guys are in the stock market, there's still this kind of disclaimer that says past performance should not be used as a predictor of future earnings on any stock you buy. So it's always been something of kind of voodoo mystery what this predictive analytics has become. There are very few organizations that actually apply it and do it well. The fact that, they've been able to take technology that has actually been around for a while and do an excellent job of forecasting what is going to happen in 2020, 2022, 2023, and basically make excellent business decisions based on something other than guesswork is fantastic. Anytime that we're able to take technology, predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, anything like that that you kind of hear about on news reports, and essentially use that technology to benefit a community, that's a real good story. My job in this was basically to submit an application. And as a former news reporter, it's like, this is actually easy to do because it's a fantastic story. All I have to do is take their story and put it into words. And what do you know? We won an award out of it. But I had the easy part. They did a fantastic job. Congratulations to these guys.
Thank you. Don't want to leave anybody else out. Nobody. Well, thank you all so much. I just think this is so impressive because you all have done something that, people pay a lot of money for companies like Deloitte and SAS to do. And the fact that you all just did it internally, and as you said, you were just doing your job, but came up with this is just amazing to me, and I really appreciate everybody's hard work and creativity and collaboration, and this will help us as we do our work. And who knows what will come next. So congratulations to everybody. So we have a brief consent agenda tonight. One item, 19-0500.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Carter. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that item is unanimously approved. We have a number of public hearings this evening. First, we have 19-0498, Leesville Road Boat and RV Storage. And we have Jamie Sunyak here to present to us.
Good evening. I would first like to state for the record that all Planning Department hearing items have been advertised and noticed in accordance with state and local law, and affidavits of all notices are on file in the Planning Department. My name is Jamie Sunyak. I'm with the Planning Department. I will be presenting case number Z1900020, Leesville Road Boat and RV Storage. This is the case summary. The applicant is Warren Mitchell. The location of the application is 4615 Leesville Road. It's located within the county jurisdiction. The site is just under 14 acres. The request is to change the zoning from residential rural to commercial general with a text-only development plan. So that's CGD. The FLOM, Future Land Use Map Designation, it's currently commercial and there is no request to change that. And again, this is a text-only development plan application. I believe the Board of County Commissioners might be somewhat familiar with the text-only development plans. I understand that one came in front of you recently. However, this slide just basically outlines the definitions of the text-only development plan, where an applicant can specify in terms of proffered commitments that limit the type of uses that would fall under the zoning district category in an RUDO section 5.1 in the use table. And in this particular instance, the applicant has specified one permitted use within the zone, self-storage, self-service storage that would be limited specifically to boat and RV storage only. And in addition, there would be no development or uses of any type north of the riparian features on the property. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is the aerial map that shows the property highlighted in red. The site is located within the suburban tier and the Falls Lake Basin and the Falls Jordan District B watershed protection overlay. The property is heavily wooded. This depicts a picture of the property from Leesville Road looking up the driveway. The property contains a single-family residence, setback off the road. There are overhead utility wires running through a portion of the site. And there's also a significant number of riparian features that bisect the property. And the topography maps show significant change in grade with the property sloping up as you leave Highway 70. And these pictures show some of the surrounding area. To the east along Leesville Road, there are a number of agricultural type uses, residential uses, as well as some undeveloped land. Along Route Highway 70, there's really no cohesive land use pattern there. There are some scattered residences, mixed in transportation, delivery type uses, a business that sells barns, a distribution and transportation, another transportation type use, as well as a good portion of the area is heavily wooded and undeveloped. This slide shows the context maps with the existing zoning highlighted to the left in yellow as rural residential, and the proposed zoning district on the right in pinkish shade to commercial general. The future land use map, the property is highlighted in a white hatch. It's currently located in the commercial future land use designation, which would be consistent with the zoning request to commercial general. And just to give a general understanding of some of the standards in the commercial general zoning district, this provides the lot dimension requirements that the applicant or anyone within the zoning district would have to adhere to. So in terms of consistency with the comprehensive plan and its policies, the first being the commercial FLUM, yes, it is consistent. The change to that zoning district would make the zoning consistent with the commercial FLUM, where the current rural residential is not consistent with the commercial FLUM. In terms of contiguous development, as I mentioned, along Route 70, there really is not a consistent development pattern, especially north and south of the site. So there's really this leapfrog type development pattern. The text commitment limiting the allowable uses specifically to the self-storage, restricting it to boat and RV, allows for a new commercial business, but also having it very low intense and low traffic generating. In addition, the applicant has committed to no development or uses north of the riparian features on the site. And there is existing infrastructure such as road, water, and sewer capacity to support the development to accommodate any potential impacts. And further detail of all of this is provided in the staff report. So staff determines that this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and other policies and ordinances. And I just wanted to mention that the Planning Commission recommended approval of this 11-0 at their August 13th, 2019 meeting. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Recco?
So thank you for that overview, and I appreciate the pictures. That's something I think we asked for a couple of years ago, and it's great to see you guys doing that. I had a question in the sense that I appreciate the commitments that the applicants made, and the use sounds reasonable, but I was struck by the fact that in reading the Planning Commission comments, one of the commissioners noted that the boats and RVs would be housed in buildings and that these buildings would not be visible from the roadway, but there's no commitment to that. And so I was curious what representation was made during the Planning Commission's public hearing that led a commissioner to write that down as part of their comments.
If I can recall correctly, I believe the applicant had come up and described the facility in terms of the site itself, and I believe the statement was based upon that. I can say that the self-storage facility is a limited use within the CG district, and one of the one of the conditions that ties it to the limited use indicates that the facility shall be screened from view from adjacent properties pursuant to section 9.7, except where storage units are not visible off-site, and all access to individual storage units are from corridors internal to the building. So one of the requirements is that the site will have to be screened if the facility is visible from the street, and that would be determined at the time of site plan.
Well, I think that's important. I over the years, it's gotten better because I think planning, your department has cracked down to some degree, but Highway 70 over the years has had used car lots that have been pretty unattractive. And as I look at the streetscape that you showed in your staff report, Leesville Road is an attractive road. The uses along there have nice green frontages, and there's a certain character to the road. I wouldn't want this use to go in and negatively impact that character. So what you're saying is that at site plan review, because of the wording in our ordinance, you will try to assure that people do not see the boats and the RVs from the roadway?
So with this type of application, we don't have a development plan. It's basically the text only that you have in front of you. So we don't have the ability to identify the actual locations of fencing or the height of fencing, but the ordinance does require if the fencing is at least 50 feet back, the fencing would be a maximum of 8 feet tall. So that would be one assurance that the site would be screened with respect to fence.
Well, you know, I guess a fence isn't necessarily the most desirable screening. The truth is it's a nicely wooded parcel, and keeping some of the woods there would be good.
Yep.
I don't know.
And the applicant would also have to adhere to any of the project boundary buffers that are also required with respect to adjacent zoning districts. So if you have a CG district up against an RR zoning district, and there would be required project boundary buffers, they would also have to adhere to that as well.
Well, I think it's important because, again, Leesville Road has a certain character, and the last thing we want is to have this use negatively impact that character. So, is the applicant here
He's
tonight?
right here.
Oh, okay.
This is,
Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe you can help answer these questions.
Commissioner Eckhoff, I'll turn it over to the applicant, of course. I just wanted to reiterate what Ms. Sunyak said, which is our Unified Development Ordinance requires that all storage buildings be screened from the right-of-way. That doesn't mean that they're completely obscured. They'll be visible, but that they'll be substantially screened. That can be with fencing, that can be with location on the site, and it can be with vegetation. And so normally we require all three of those things at the time of site plan to ensure that the views of the storage building are screened.
Well, but what if he doesn't, because there is no commitment to build storage buildings. All he's saying is that he's going to store boats and RVs. They could be stored without a commitment, unless our ordinance disallows this, loose on the site.
So you're right. So there's two separate requirements in the ordinance. One is for screening of storage buildings, and one is for screening of outdoor storage. So you're absolutely correct that it's possible this could be developed without storage buildings.
Right.
But outdoor storage also has to be screened.
So and what's the wording for the outdoor storage? Is it the same?
I'll have to,
As those buildings?
after the applicant says a few words, we'll read
Okay.
that to you, but it's similar.
All right.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Warren Mitchell, and I'm here with my partner, David. We operate the Highway 64 boat and RV storage in Apex. When we were going through the application process, I did offer up that the boats and RVs would be screened from all property with the buildings. And I was not allowed to put that in the commitments. And I think that I don't remember the reasoning why that wasn't allowed as a commitment, the language. But what this facility will be, so it's 13 acres, but there's a riparian buffer through the middle and then that large transmission easement with the power company. So it's got about 3 acres usable. And we'll build the building in a fortress method, that's what they call it, where you build it in a perimeter and the building is completely enclosed, and then you drive in, one driveway will be an opening and there will be a gate there that people punch in. And when you get in, then you can go around on the inside and park your vehicle and come back out that one entrance. But the entire perimeter will be the outside of the building. And we do it for security, but also it presents a pleasing look to the road and the neighbors. Coincidentally, the only house, it's a rental house beside this property, on Leesville. It's just a little bit north of this. It's north of this project. We're going to be cutting down 20 feet to level it out, the property, so that we will be from that house. We will, the top of the building will be below their eyesight. But from Leesville, obviously, you'll see this building, and you'll have one entrance. And we used a very pleasing color on our Highway 64 building. It's a charcoal. It's like a dark charcoal. If you can imagine, it blends in very well. We're glad to keep that commitment. I'm on under oath with the public hearing that this is what we're doing, and we have Durham tenants at our Apex site, and they just have not been able to find a good boat and RV storage, and really even more limited is covered storage. So that is our plan to build on this site.
I just want to say, we haven't opened the public hearing yet.
Okay.
So
But you're answering questions.
we could come back, or when we finish answering questions, we'll open the public hearing and then invite you if you want to make that statement again. But we're actually not, it hasn't been opened yet.
Very good. Well, I did want to just emphasize that this will alleviate your concerns. It's a matter of how to just get you comfortable that's what's going to happen on the site.
So my question then, following up on the applicant's comments to the planning director, is why not allow him to commit to building
Fortress.
a facility to store the boats and the RVs?
Right. So I would contend, and on the record here, that the applicant has done that through the text commitment. Ms. Sunya can pull that back up perhaps on the PowerPoint, but the commitment through the text-only development plan is a self-storage facility. Self-storage facility under our ordinance requires a building, at least one building, an office. So it couldn't be just outdoor storage without a building included. And so
Do we have a definition? Because self-storage, when I read it, I thought, oh, they're going to drive in and self-park their RV or boat and leave. Do we have a definition that assures that there is a building? Because even the applicant said he didn't think he was committing to the building, even though he is going to build a building. You see what I'm saying?
I do. So there's the proposed text commitment. So self-service storage I interpret that to mean that there's a building and an office. I don't know if that's a defined term. Sunyak's going to confirm that right now.
It seems like we could just
we'll
clarify
just-
self-service storage, including a building restricted to boat and RV storage only.
Okay, so we can accept modifications to that proposed text limitation tonight from the applicant, as long as it's legal and enforceable, and clear. We cannot have additional, so we can't accept that. We can't accept additional commitments that are, because this is a text-only development plan that would trigger the other requirements of a traditional development plan. But we can allow additional clarification or elaboration on this proposed text commitment tonight.
I think that would be good in the sense that then it would be crystal clear. And all we're doing is further defining self-storage, right? To say that it includes a building.
Yes, it's not, I had conversations with staff during the development of this project. It's not a defined term in the ordinance, but I haven't continuously and consistently interpreted self-storage facility as a facility that has storage buildings. But if that needs to be clarified or specified in this, that will be additional surety for the public and for you all.
Okay,
I just want
to give other commissioners a chance, and then we can come back to this. Any other questions or comments for the staff? Well, why don't we let Pat look at the language for a minute and help suggest something to us, and then we can go back to the applicant. But let's move on for a minute. Are there other questions or comments for staff? Okay, so I just have two quick comments about the staff report. Jamie? Yes. So the pictures were great, but in the future, it would be good to have a little indicator of where is it? Is it north of the property, looking from which direction? Just some clarity of what the picture is in relation to the site.
So there is, on the aerial, there are little numbers.
I did see that, but then you have to, right, but then you got to go back. It just would be easier just to have a little definition under the pictures.
Sure, we can add that.
And then on the chart for the schools, I didn't really understand how on the impacts, it said that there was -1 and the other ones were 0 impact. How would there be a minus?
So under the rural residential zoning district, there is an assumption that there's going to be a school children, and since this use is specific to no residential uses, you would actually lose or reduce the number of school children that would be generated from this proposal.
Right, but I didn't understand, because it says that instead of 2 children for elementary, be -1, and instead of 1 child for middle school, be 0, and instead of 2 high school students, there would be 0.
Let me just get to the page.
So it's on page 3 of the impacts. I didn't understand what the rationale for that determination was.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes, there are typos there. So, you would be correct in the confusion.
Okay.
And I can just certify for the record that, right, this use would generate 0 students. The current zoning would generate up to 5 students. So it's a net reduction of possibly 5 students.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. So I'm now going to open the public hearing. And I wasn't sure, there was one person, Jim Anthony. Are you signed up to speak on this? Which item are you? Expanding housing choice? Okay, because it wasn't on here. Okay. So I'm going to open the public hearing, and I guess, Pat, if you have anyone sign up to speak think we just have the applicant here. Do you have any recommended language that you think would address the concerns that have been raised about making sure that this is in fact properly screened?
Right, so it's very important, Chair Jacobs, that any commitments be voluntarily proffered by the applicant.
Okay.
So the applicant is discussing what's potentially acceptable in the sense of legal and enforceable, and we'll let the applicant proffer that. But that's not something we could require or mandate. But I understand what Commissioner Reckow has raised, and the concern is that it be specific and clear that there be storage buildings that would kick in the screening requirement that's existing in the UDO.
I think Jamie wanted me to just, are we still on the?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The building will be, as I discussed, completely sided on the outside. Down the middle, on the inside, when you pull in, there might be a canopy building like you see if you park your car and go to the airport, where there's no siding on the inside, but the outside, all those spaces will be parked from the inside, and there will be siding completely around that building.
And are you planning to have the keep the trees up as screening around the edges?
Oh, the site, as Jamie mentioned, is a lot of topography, and to get it all flattened out, I think we'll have to replant along. We're going to have us replant along Leesville. We're going to keep as many as we can along the side where there's a residential home there, a rental house, and then we can't go into the buffer area or the power easement area. So it's about 3 acres. So we'll keep what we can. We don't want to spend money on landscaping if it's not necessary.
Right. Okay, so I guess there was a question about whether the language of self-service storage and whether there was any language that you might want to add to specify that it's a facility or a building.
Yes, and I did want to explain, there won't be an office. Most of the tenants, there's very little turnover once they're renting, so there's not a lot of turnover like self-storage. It's not self-storage, but covered boat and RV does come under that category.
So are you comfortable with adding self-storage facility or building?
So Chair Jacobs, if you don't, I'm sorry to interrupt. What Jamie's discussing with the applicant is there's a citation in the ordinance that pertains to the screening standard for self-storage facilities. And so what we're suggesting, if it's the intent and the desire of the applicant, is that they proffer specific to that standard, that it be screened just like any other self-storage facility. Kind of regardless of the final precise design of the building.
Okay.
It really is a self-storage because the ones on the outside will have garage doors, just like a storage. They're just bigger.
Right.
Like the ones in self-storage are small doors.
Right.
So it's really the same concept. But the ones on the middle, on the interior, they might just be canopy only, but they'll be completely blocked from view from the perimeter buildings. It was designed for this concern that you have. That's why it was concept.
So what wording can we go with?
So that's right. The wording is from the ordinance. It's the facility shall be screened from view from adjacent properties pursuant to section 9.7.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. And
that's the citation that requires the screening from offsite.
Okay,
so I think that's acceptable and addresses the concern, to my understanding, that Commissioner Reckow raised.
Okay, so I will now close the public hearing, and the matter that we have before us is we have 2 different motions.
I move that we adopt the statement of consistency with the comprehensive plan, the plan map, and any other applicable ordinances.
Second.
So it just says here, North Carolina General Statute 153A-341. And then the second part, actually in here, Commissioner Carter, you want the exact length?
Looking at the staff now.
Don't we need to vote on the first one, Wendy?
Okay, so you moved, right?
No.
Okay,
Heidi moved it, and I
Commissioner Carter,
seconded it.
moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And there's a second motion.
So second motion is to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance by taking property out of rural residential and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection Overlay B zoning districts and establishing the same as commercial general with a text-only development plan and Falls Jordan Watershed Protection Overlay B.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Howerton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion is unanimously approved. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we have TC 1000003, Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment for FEMA firm updates.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Michael Stock with the Planning Department. Text Amendment TC 1903 is a technical update to adopt revised flood insurance rate maps or FIRM panels issued by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, by December 6, 2019, as required by FEMA and state law in order to maintain Durham's participation in the National Flood Insurance Program, or NFIP. The NFIP requires local communities, as a condition of future federal financial assistance and federally backed property flood insurance, to participate in the flood insurance program and to adopt floodplain ordinances consistent with federal standards to reduce or avoid future flood losses. FEMA implements the NFIP, and the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management serves as the state coordinator. Once FEMA approves a floodplain map for the NFIP, each local government affected by the floodplain must incorporate the revised map into its floodplain ordinance. No new flood insurance coverage can be provided until that occurs. And this is exactly the same thing that this board approved almost a year ago, the October, I'm blanking out a date in October, where you approved a larger set of panels. These are some outstanding panels that were left out of that batch because of challenges to the determinations in neighboring counties that these panels crossed over, I believe in Granville and Person County. The Joint City County Planning Committee reviewed the text amendment and had no concerns. The Plan Commission reviewed approval, recommended approval 12-0 of the text amendment at its September 10th meeting. As a reminder, the Board of Commissioners will be required to take two actions. The first would be the action of appropriate statement of consistency, which is found in Attachment A. The second would be an action on the ordinance amendment itself, Attachment B. Thank you. If you be happy to answer any questions, and also Ryan Eves with County Engineering is here to also answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Any questions? Commissioner Reckow.
So I'm fairly familiar with the remapping process, but what struck me this time is this discussion of 1% future conditions and acreage involved. What is the future conditions?
It's a different mapping hydrology that's on all the flood insurance rate maps, and Durham is, I would say, not solely, but we regulate to that in addition to the base 100 year. It's something additional that Durham regulates, both city and county.
So the future conditions is taking the mapping further?
Yes. It's usually, when you see it on a map, it's a slight additional floodplain beyond the 100-year floodplain. It shows up in very infrequent instances, but it does show up. It's an additional hydrology study.
Interesting.
Yep.
Well, I just think every time I see the remapping, our floodplains are generally getting bigger. and taking in more area. And I just think we all need to recognize that as we urbanize and and particularly with when new developments occurring in construction, we're having more siltation into our rivers. They can't handle as much water, and when they can't channel all the water, it floods. It has potential to flood more land. So, you know, we all need to have our eyes open, including the homeowners and landowners in the area, that as we develop, unfortunately, floodplains will probably continue to creep out. But, you know, this is something that is absolutely necessary that we do. But I think it's important for us to think of ways to educate our citizens about the power of water and the fact that we need to take our floodplain protections seriously, and et cetera. So thinking of ways to do it. I was in a location, I guess it was up in Michigan, and I visited my children and grandchildren just a couple of weeks ago. They had a very prominent sign. We went out to a natural area, and they had a very prominent sign about being in a particular watershed, and then the protections for that watershed. And they actually had a link to a website where you could learn more. And I think we need to maybe look at doing a little more of that in Durham in terms of how we alert people to the importance of protecting our watersheds. Thought.
Commissioner Howard, Tim.
Just a clarification question. This is on 8.4.2. Map change issued, is that issued by FEMA to update as of December 6th of 2019?
Yes.
That is just will be updated as of then?
Yes, these will become, we are required to adopt the ordinance prior to that effective date. And if you don't do that, you lose your floodplain insurance.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And the city has actually already updated their maps, so.
They will actually,
they're going to do
both governing bodies did the October 2018. You're seeing it first for this round, and they'll take it up next month.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, I mean, I think what I noticed when I looked at this map is that there really weren't a lot of changes for actually the county. That most of these are, as you mentioned, there's a few of the maps that are just on some of the adjoining land that's adjoining other counties. But I don't know, Ryan, if you want to come up and comment, it seemed like there really wasn't a whole lot of impact that we're seeing for Durham County with this.
Well, that is true in this adoption. As Mike pointed out, the bulk of the items or the map was adopted last year. These are only the panels that included portions of other counties where there were some challenges to the maps. Again, like we're doing here tonight, where we have a public hearing, and throughout the process, there are opportunities for homeowners, property owners to challenge the maps if they have different data or different information. They believe the floodplain maps to be inaccurate. And so in this case, property owners in the other counties with these panels were the ones that had challenges. And so that's why there's such a small number in this case. And so this is a very small segment of the total number of maps.
And then for some residents, actually, there's going to, some people will actually be removed from flood areas. And I know the city they put out a press release about how some residents are going to need to know because they're going to pay less insurance, or maybe they don't need flood insurance. So I guess my question is, how are we going to, are there county residents that are going to have insurance changes, and how are we contacting them about it?
We'll have to have more discussion about exactly how we'll be communicating the changes to them, especially for those who may need it now that didn't have it before. What you're referring to with the press release for the city is a separate but related program. It's called a community rating system, which is what communities can opt into to provide floodplain or flood insurance discounts to their residents. That's a system that is a scaled system. The city moved from a Category 8 to a Category 7 and went from a 10% discount to a 15% discount. The county still remains in the Category 8. And it's a point-based system based on the number of programs, some planning and zoning regulations you do, stormwater management, erosion sediment control. There are a number of things that you can obtain points for that kind of move you up the system. But you can get as high as a rating 1, which gets you a 40% discount. There's only one community in the country that actually meets the Category 1, but so that's a very tall task.
So how do we notify people, though, if they do need more or less flood insurance? Do we do anything related to that?
I believe, Michael Sock with the Planning Department. I believe my understanding is through the adoption process of these actual maps and how property owners get to be in the know to even actually challenge, they are notified of that they're in the floodplain and the maps have changed. So that's how the folks in Person County knew to even challenge. They're notified. There hasn't been, I did a parcel, and my buddy who does better GIS than I do, in the section of panels that are to the east, there was no change in parcels that had floodplain on it. If there was a reduction, they still had floodplain on it. It was just a reduction, or they got more, but it was still on it. There was no increase in number of parcels. And those 3 panels to the north, there was only a reduction of 3 panels, 3 parcels that had floodplain on it. There was some floodplain reduction there. So it's basically lack of a better term, a wash.
But weren't there 133, all totaled, the total change is 133 additional acres?
Yeah, acres, but I was talking about parcels before.
No, but I'm just saying there's more land.
Yes.
That's what I was referring to. There's more land in floodplain now.
Right.
And back to what Mike was saying, there is a process. This has been a several year-long process. I believe back in 2015, we held an open house for folks to, with the state emergency management team, to come in and be able to map their property on a computer and look and see if they had changes. I believe that was back in 2015 when the first round of maps came out. And so there have been opportunities for people and property owners to see the changes for several years now.
Okay, thank you. So we need to open the public hearing. Is there anyone signed up to speak? Nobody had signed up. I will close the public hearing. We have 2 motions before us.
I'll try this one again, a little different wording this time. We'll see which one we like better. I'm looking at attachment A. I move that we adopt the Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment Consistency Statement regarding TC 1900003 FEMA firm updates, and that it is indeed consistent with PLUM and the comp plan and any other applicable ordinances.
Is that okay? Because it doesn't say, you want the statute?
That's fine.
Statute just says we have to do it. We did it with
Okay, got it.
Second.
Okay. All right. Moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Recco. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll do the second motion.
Okay.
To adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance incorporating revisions to amend Article 8, Environmental Protection.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Recco, seconded by Commissioner Howerton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Second motion is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, it's the public hearing marathon tonight. Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment expanding housing choices, TC 1800007, Durham County jurisdiction only. So we have Pat Young here, and
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, Pat Young with the Planning Department. I'll briefly reintroduce this item. You all will likely recall that this came for your consideration on September 23rd, and there were questions and concerns that resulted in that being referred back to the administration. I'll also remind you all that the city heard this item on September 3rd and adopted it, so within the city limits, the provisions that are before you again tonight took effect on October 1st. And so tonight is our second public hearing. The item was re-advertised as was required by law, since this is a new hearing, since it was referred back to the administration. During the time since this has first been heard on September 23rd by you all, we've been working with the administration and with commissioners and staff to make an effort to really enhance and improve our commitment, which is reflected in a revised resolution that's part of your item tonight, to document our commitment to tracking and monitoring the impacts of these provisions if they're adopted. And so there's three key areas that are in this enhanced resolution that's before you. The first is that it commits us to bringing back a detailed description of each of the metrics that the data source and how we're going to track and monitor each metric by January of 2020. It commits us to a 6-month reporting period starting in April, so 6 months from tonight, and then every 6 months after that through 2022. And then finally, and I think very importantly, in 2022, it calls for a full 3-year assessment of the impacts of the expanding housing choices provisions, and it allows you all and city council members to provide substantive feedback on, and of course you could do that at any time, and certainly with the 6-month updates, but a full detailed assessment of impacts in 2022 that would incorporate also a lot of the feedback that we received through the comprehensive plan development process, which is just underway, and that will be concluding in early 2022. So really, it's a perfect opportunity to fully reflect that comp plan feedback, 3 years of experience with these provisions, and course correct if necessary. And on the screen there, you see the kind of numeric and geographic tracking of the provisions, and then a number of additional metrics that look at impacts on different parts of our community. Something I will quickly mention here, and that I've talked to several commissioners about, is some of these metrics we have on hand and that we'll start tracking right away. In fact, we have already begun tracking them, most of them. Some metrics will require additional resources and partnerships, including the tax administrator, which of course we have worked with and will work with. We probably will need academic researchers and community members to help us with some of this, and we're working on that assiduously, including with the Interneighborhood Council. And then some of these items won't be available every 6 months because they're only reported annually or biannually by the reporting agency, such as the U.S. Census Bureau. But we will do some report and provide detail on that at every 6-month interval. Then finally, and you saw this information last time, the provisions primarily impact properties within the city limits. It was really intended to try to increase the diversity and availability of housing, diversity of housing types and the availability of housing in the urban tier, which is substantially or primarily in the city limits. But there are a couple handfuls of unincorporated lots in the county, and there are provisions, importantly, such as the accessory dwelling unit allowances and the conservation subdivision and cluster subdivision provisions that apply countywide, along with how we would calculate density. So that just wanted to make sure that was understood, that these provisions would affect the unincorporated portion of the county, only. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions that you have.
So thank you so much, Pat, and I really appreciate I know a lot of work has happened since our last public hearing. I want to thank all the commissioners, Commissioner Reckow, and everybody who's worked with staff on really strengthening just the approach towards the metrics. And so I think it was a really great collaborative effort. So thank you. Commissioner Howerton?
Just a quick question, Patrick. What is it that you would be able to measure in 6 months? Can you clarify that a little bit more?
Sure. So what we're already tracking from October 1st, when this took effect in the city, is the number of new units that are allowed, are being developed, that would not have previously been allowed prior to October 1st. So just the pure number, the number of new subdivisions called lot splits on this slide, where land was subdivided in a way that previously wouldn't have been allowed. The mix of units, meaning whether are there accessory dwelling units, are they duplexes, are they attached houses or townhouses, land sale prices, demolition data. Those are all things that we already have on hand. The information that's on the bottom part of this slide is going to require just a little bit of additional partnership and input from partners to have that up. I feel confident by January we'll at least have a clear roadmap on how to get the data, but we don't have that on hand today.
So you would be able to measure the 6 months, and then would you go back 6 months again and do a comparison analysis?
That's exactly right. Every 6 months, we'll track this data if it's available at a 6-month interval and track it over time. So by the end of, say, 3 years, we should have 6 reporting periods and hopefully have a picture of what this is doing in our community.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Reckow?
So I just want to say that one of the things that gave me pause at our last meeting was the whole issue of the naturally occurring affordable housing and potentially losing those units. And I was really pleased when I shared some of these new metrics with John Hodges-Koppel, a principal planner at TJ Cog. He alerted me to the fact that they have a database for Durham with the legally binding affordability restricted units called LBAR, and then the naturally occurring affordable housing units, those are called NOAA units. And that, so they have a base that exists, and he thinks that they can help us going forward in terms of tracking change. So that's going to be really beneficial for us to see what happens in these neighborhoods. And so that's a resource that gave me comfort in terms of being able to monitor change. I also want to say that provision 3 also gives me comfort. You know, at the last meeting, I did express concern about the fact that we're starting a comprehensive plan, which may yield a lot of valuable input even about this subject. And so by incorporating a review 3 years from now in the fall of 2022 to not only look at the metrics we've collected for 3 years, but also any relevant input from the comprehensive plan that would have been completed hopefully the spring of 2022, so 6 months earlier, that could inform whether any amendments, any changes are appropriate or not. So I think those things definitely improve my personal comfort level and some of the citizens that I've spoken to who had expressed concerns. In fact, we got one email today from a citizen who had seen the amended resolution and felt a whole lot better about it. So I think that this is a better place to be. And really, the discussion at Joint City-County Planning, when we referred it there, was helpful in terms of solidifying the ideas. And I got the sense that our council would support, hopefully, more robust metrics, because we had a discussion, we were throwing out some additional ideas, and they seemed amenable. So hopefully that will be good and inform the thinking of everyone.
Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. We have a number of people who are signed up to speak, and I'll ask that you please come, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes, and we'll start with Dan Jewell, followed by Nick Doty.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. Sorry I wasn't able to make the meeting last month. I had a meeting in Chapel Hill that ran over, so I hate to belabor this meeting a little longer tonight, but I will be quick. I live at 1025 Gloria Avenue in Trinity Park. I want to come right out and say that I believe the proposal before you this evening is really a necessary and important first step in a long community conversation to figure out how we handle the growth that is happening in Durham, whether we like it or not. It's a conversation on how to try and reduce the pressure on all of our neighborhoods in Durham of the continuing cost escalation of housing due to there being more demand than supply. And it's a needed step to give current and new homeowners the opportunity to provide a modest amount of additional housing on their properties to accommodate more family members, possibly create some rental income to offset the rising bar and cost of housing in Durham, and yes, even welcome new neighbors into our neighborhoods. I followed the Planning Department's proposal since the first public open houses, November of last year, and have attended quite a few of the community meetings since. The proposal last November didn't seem unreasonable to me, but I heard concerns that there may not have been enough public outreach, particularly in certain neighborhoods, and also concerns about parking, teardowns, and untenable densification of our urban tier neighborhoods. I think the Planning Department did a great job with additional community outreach since then, and I think the proposal before you tonight is a wisely crafted compromise of where it was a year ago to where it went with the Planning Commission and where we are today. I further think that this additional language concerning metrics and monitoring that you directed the planning staff to come back with makes this an even stronger proposal. Again, I think this is the first incremental step in a robust continuing conversation about how to accommodate the new folks who want to move to Durham and will move to Durham, but do it in a manner that does not compromise the ability of the people who are already here to enhance their position in the community. Finally, as you well know, UDO text amendments come before you several times a year. If this monitoring shows that anything in this change is causing unintended consequences, the rules can be changed when and as deemed appropriate. So thank you for your time, and I urge you to vote for the proposal before you tonight.
Thank you. After Nick Doty, we have Mimi Kessler.
Good evening. I'm Nick Doty, 300 Blackwell Street. I noticed there aren't quite as many people at this hearing. Might seem like there's less impact, given that we've discussed this at a previous public hearing, given that the city council measure has already gone into effect, and that most of the provisions were related to the urban tier. But there is still a significant impact for the changes in front of you all because of the ability to, primarily, the ability to build ADUs a little more easily. And that's a significant impact for sustainability, both in terms of housing affordability, which you've heard plenty from the planning department about that, about competition for housing. I think it's important for fiscal sustainability for the county in terms of additional units that are ADUs that are built as infill development is fewer units built at the very fringe of the city and the county. And finally, for environmental sustainability, letting neighbors live a little bit closer to one another in existing neighborhoods makes it easier for us to share bus routes with more people, for example, and address our transportation carbon emissions. So this is a modest and incremental step, as I think you've heard several times. I would encourage you to support it, but I would also encourage you to recognize that this will not be enough for our long-term sustainability. And fortunately, we have an opportunity with the comprehensive plan, which has been noted is just getting kicked off with listening meetings. That's an opportunity to make it clear that we will need much more significant infill development for those environmental and for affordability issues. So I encourage you to vote in favor of this today, even with the limited impact, and to commit yourselves to participating and taking advantage of the comprehensive plan and transit plan changes.
Thank you. So we have Mimi Kessler and then Jim Anthony.
Good evening. Thank you for the chance to speak. My name's Mimi Kessler. I live at 1418 Woodland Drive in Durham. I am very excited about having these metrics defined. It has been one of the things that as I've watched EHC move along, I have wanted to have the metrics defined so that we know what we're measuring so that when there are unintended consequences, we can do something about them. It is important to have some sort of baseline, some sort of thing that says that a certain number of hourly workers have been basically forced out by the market, and where do they go? And in all of the research I did about other cities that have done this, no one seems to know where they've gone. And if what we're doing is taking the market and I think fueling the market forces, I'm concerned about the hourly workers who live in this city, who clean this building, and who work at the Duke Hospital, and all of those people who provide us with essential services. But they're not going to be able to afford their homes, so they're going to sell it, and it's going to change over. Well, where do those people go? And we need to know what has been happening. So for 6 months before EHC, and then 6 months after it started, we need to know something about this turnover before it started so that we can know whether it's accelerated or not. And I don't know whether or not that's possible to get that data, but I do think that it's important to have data to compare so that we know whether or not it is a problem. My greatest concern about this is that it will force out people who are lower income, and I would like to see us do more in terms of getting them to be able to build ADUs to get rental income so that they can stay in their homes. But we know that the gentrification is already happening. So let's measure what's been happening so that we know whether or not what comes in the future is really any worse. Thank you.
Thank you. After Jim, we have Alan Pless.
My name's Jim Anthony. I am
I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Hi. I'm Jim Anthony, and I am from 1201 Edwards Mill Road in Raleigh. I am here simply to speak in favor of this very important step in the right direction towards providing those homes for, as we just heard, the people that are being pushed out of housing in town. We are going to be able to create more housing on smaller lots and create answers to the problem that has been addressed here so frequently before. So I want to thank you for considering this bold step. I spoke about this before the City Council, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to do so here before the County Commissioners as well.
Thank you. And Ellen Pless.
Yes, hello, good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. In addition to any changes that expanding housing choices brings to Durham, one other thing that we've had with this has been a process. And the process of rezoning essentially 1/4 of Durham's population through a text amendment has been unique. And I think that we have some takeaways here that could be very important in terms of how we do our business in the future moving forward. I especially wish to thank each one of you for the additional level of expertise and work that you brought to this process, for leaning in and not moving overmuch with pressure or swiftness. We could yet have had more time. I know the Planning Commission asked for more time in this, as did community members. This is the reality that we are looking at, though, with this process here. Beyond that, and more specifically, I just wish to encourage you to please now look into developing a robust Airbnb policy so that ADUs that are being built in Durham will actually help to address the needs of our own population, rather than being used as de facto hotels in people's backyards, which don't really benefit our true residents of Durham. I also would encourage, since we're talking about FEMA and also tree coverage tonight, I would encourage us to just reflect for a moment on the fact that we will be having stormwater impacts that will be expanding. I myself live in an area where there's dense urban canopy that is not just pretty, it is amazingly functional and important to my community as it acts like a massive sponge. My community surrounds a FEMA floodplain. The denser we get, the more we expect that floodplain to be more and more active. So your job is complicated. Everything you do is knitted together with ever so many other things that you do, and we realize it's a balance. We thank you for that. But please do just be mindful. I believe yesterday I read we had a 600-gallon sewage spill into Ellerby Creek. And I think that we need to be very careful moving forward that since we didn't have an infrastructure impact study prior to implementing this, again, everything is delicate and everything is connected. And thank you very much for your work on this and for leaning in with the additional efforts that you applied. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for your very thoughtful comments, and everyone who is sitting here tonight because of the expanding housing choice issue. I want to thank you for being here, because you're here because you care passionately about our community, and that's what makes Durham a great community. So thank you to everybody.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to ask our planning director a follow-up question triggered by a couple of comments by our citizens, which I think are important. So in number 1, it does call for, and I just want to make sure we're on the same wavelength in terms of moving forward, that you're going to bring to us a proposed set of metrics at that in January 2020. But it does say including baseline data for 2019 if available. So going to the points that have been raised, we really, to get off to a good start here, we need to have our metrics, and then where we can, the blanks get filled in for what that baseline was in this current year, 2019. Do you agree with that, Pat?
Yes, Commissioner Echo. I think Ms. Kessler and you are make an excellent point that it is critical not just to track metrics going forward, but to set a baseline and even to look, I would argue, this is not explicitly in here, but looking back to say 2012, since the end of the last recession in terms of the housing market. So we would have both kind of historical context, baseline data, and then moving forward. So
Right.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, so I think that is all to the good. And, in terms of wanting to know where someone who leaves the neighborhood goes, that's just so hard to track, right? Because I mean, am I missing something? There's just no way to know, right?
Well, so here's what I would say to that. I think it's both very difficult to track, and it's also extremely important in terms of assessing the impacts of, of these provisions. One of the key arguments for these provisions where they've been used elsewhere is the indirect effect, meaning that there's some, because of folks moving from the region or from Durham to the new housing, that's opening up new housing opportunities elsewhere in Durham. So we are going to try to find partners, probably in academia, where we've seen this done successfully, to try to track that.
So you are going to try to track
Individual
where
movers.
the people who sell their homes or leave their rental units in these neighborhoods go, to the degree you can.
Yes, if we can get that data. We don't have a partner on board at this moment, but we're going to work with, we have 3 world-class universities here in the region.
So then if that's something that you think you're going to be able to do, you could actually bring us back another metric, because that one's not necessarily covered per se, but it'd be, if we can do it, it would be very telling.
If we can do it, we will do it, but it's going to require a high-quality partnership, probably with a research institution in the area. So, but that would be included in the metrics that we report, if we can find a partner.
Okay, so that would be looking at the displacements, where people go who leave a neighborhood. Okay, well, let's put a pin in that, because that's the one that I think Mimi Kessler has been on for a bit. I've heard from her via email, and I didn't think we could do it, but if there's a will, there's a way, maybe, so we should try to do it.
Just from some preliminary conversations with colleagues in the public policy and planning departments at Duke Central, the MPA program, and at UNC Chapel Hill, I'm confident we can find some academic partners. It may take 6 months or a year to get cycled up with the academic cycle, but there's a lot of interest in this topic, as you're, I think, well aware, in academia.
Commissioner Howerton?
I think you mentioned something about it's going to take more resources. Have you decided what's the amount of resources that you have targeted?
Well, so I think what our intent to do is to go try to find partners, and then work with those partners to have proposals developed, and if that involves funding or financing, we'll through the budget process, or through a budget amendment, we'll let you all in the City Council know what that involves. For example, the kind of research that I just described to Commissioner Reckow may possibly require some kind of contribution. If we can accommodate it within the department's budget, we'll do so, but it may require an additional budget allocation. I don't think it would be substantial, but it may be something above our core budget.
I have some questions, but Commissioner Carter, if you want to.
I have some comments, but maybe one quick question, because I was also thinking, well, first of all, I assume there may be other metrics that come up that, we'll track, they don't have to be included in the resolution tracked. And one might be something related to Airbnbs and how they're used. And I liked the idea of the city or whoever it would be, maybe a city and county, I don't know, having a policy about Airbnbs, whatever it might say. And also another question, if we approve this tonight, we're not just approving it for the county jurisdiction, are we? We're approving it for county that also includes city. It's countywide.
So if you all adopted tonight, it would be in effect countywide. That you all's action only applies it in the unincorporated portions of Durham County.
It always only did, I guess.
Correct.
Well, I just really want to thank everybody also who's worked so hard on this. The Planning Commission itself, and there were a lot of people here last time. It was easier to thank them. And I feel like I made a lot of comments last time. I plan to make a lot of comments tonight too, because I do feel like this is very important. it's an example of a policy decision that's difficult. And it's difficult because there are opportunities and risks associated with it, and decision makers have to weigh the benefits and drawbacks of every policy decision we make. But this one in particular has felt very fraught, and we've heard a lot from the community on both sides. And I hear the concerns. I think we share those, and that's why it is really important that we have more specific about what we'll be tracking and monitoring. And I know Ellen really pushed that. Thank you, Ellen, for doing that. But anyway, even though there are these risks, I just really do believe that on balance that there are important benefits and opportunities that outweigh the risks as we try to manage our growth and be more environmentally sustainable and grow in a more equitable way. And I'd like to just sort of lay out what I think the benefits are in my mind. In essence, the EHC will open up the opportunity to build dwelling units that are something other than single-family units in more of Durham, including the urban tier. And I think that the elimination of the exclusive single-family zoning is important because it can help us redress our legacy of zoning laws that have been discriminatory and racially segregating and are connected to racial inequities that we see in Durham today. I also think that this will have the benefit of increasing density in the urban tier where infrastructure can more readily support it. And that will help usher in some environmental benefits. This is fairly modest, but still, we hopefully will be increasing density and we'll have less sprawl. I think these changes support existing homeowners who might want to take advantage of the equity they have in their land by building an ADU or subdividing their lot with a dwelling unit on a flag lot. And this could be sources of income for either rental or sales. I think that these changes can increase the supply of housing for modest income families in the urban tier because the amendments will make it possible to build market rate housing that will be comparatively more affordable and accessible to lower and moderate income households. I think that these changes can help alleviate the outcome of higher income residents buying down a rung on the housing price ladder. And it can relieve some of the market pressures that are driving up housing prices and, in other words, help stabilize housing costs, which is a big goal. I think that, and I hope it has the potential anyway to actually decrease the gentrifying impacts of tearing down lower priced dwelling units and putting up these mega luxury single family units that are super expensive and drive up costs. And I think that we'll have the benefit of easing in gradual changes in the urban tier versus a more aggressive set of text amendments. I actually thought expanding housing choices was really a rather grandiloquent name for something that is projected to increase 45 units per year by 2024. There's been so much interest and outcry over what, if I'm interpreting the information from the planning department correctly, is really only 11 new units per year on average until 2024, when it will be 140 units versus the 95 we now have that are being built in the urban tier. And I think that it does open up the way for nonprofit and creative, socially minded developers to increase the supply of affordable housing for lower income families. And finally, something that we haven't mentioned is I think it is a good thing to have a unified development ordinance across city and county governments. Now, I would also just want to say a few things about the risks because they're very real and drawbacks. And one of them is that this does not focus on increasing the supply of affordable housing for those lower income residents who are housing burdened. Zoning reforms are certainly not sufficient to address our housing crisis, but they should be an essential part of our long-term approach. And of course, we're going to have other interventions in our broad mix of strategies, and we already have some, like the way we're using our public land on the 300 and 500 blocks in creative ways to increase affordable housing as we wrap our parking deck. We can do additional land banking. We need to pass the affordable housing bond and support the Durham Housing Authority and their 10-year plans. We need to work on exactly what we'll be doing regarding low-interest loans and financing plans for those who do want to build and purchase homes. And we need to work on putting a lot of more programs in place to help with things like eviction diversion and to help tenants stay in their home and to help protect vulnerable neighborhoods. I do think there's a really increased risk of more tear downs that could hurt the very people we're trying to help. And how do we know this is real? It's because we have these tear downs now, and the number of tear downs are only growing. But today, because of exclusionary zoning in the urban tier, most of what is built is predominantly large, expensive, single-family dwelling units. And with these new text amendments, it will be possible for builders to build on smaller lots, duplexes, ADU, more housing types that I really do think will help put less upward pressure on housing prices. We may exceed the capacity of water, sewer, schools, roadway infrastructure. That is always a concern. We may have increases that are harmful to our stormwater runoff and our water supply. Happening now, we really will have to be vigilant about that and make investment to mitigate any harm there. I don't want to decrease our tree canopy. I was really glad to see the tree planting requirements and also split driveways and downspouts related more to the water issues. And I also want to say I hear the objection that EHC is too conservative of a planning approach by some people who said that it's grounded in incremental planning theory and that it does not think holistically enough to make the big changes that we actually really need to increase density and to have the environmental impacts, the substantial environmental impacts we need. I think that's true, but I do think that incremental change is partly an attempt to ease this in so that those who don't want neighborhood character change will be a little more accepting of it. And the bottom line is, for all of us who believe we need something more, we're in luck. We have this robust, comprehensive planning process that is just now underway. And so I just want to say, I don't see this as our big response to Durham's housing crisis or to the racist exclusionary housing history that we have. It really is a minor, gradual revision, and it's a temporary step until we can finish our more robust and equitable, the comprehensive planning process that we expect and are asking to be very much based in equitable community engagement and robust community engagement. So I was ready to support it last time. It's better now. I'm ready to support it again tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Carter, for those fantastic comments. Really appreciate all of your thoughtfulness about this issue. Thank you. So I'm not going to, I have a few questions that I just want to follow up on. In terms of us then sharing the resolution with the City Council and perhaps asking them to adopt these metrics as well, do you have any recommendations about that process?
The planning department would be willing to do that. I'd like to bring it to a joint city county planning committee in December, just to introduce it, talk through it a little bit, and then ask the administration and the council members to see if they would entertain it at a January, February 2020.
Okay.
Obviously, if you all want to do independent outreach or a resolution, but I'm more than willing to take the lead on that.
Right. I think it's appropriate for you to do that.
I meant what I said individually, and I hope earlier that it really improves the initiative to have those metrics, and I want to definitely appreciate you all for the input, particularly Commissioner Reckow's leadership.
Okay. Obviously, without us jointly adopting these, it's not going to be that very meaningful. So we do want to.
Aren't you going to be tracking it countywide and not just incorporated?
Yeah.
Well, this actually, I mean, this resolution would only impact the very small number of parcels or properties or areas that would be within the county, but.
Well, but that
I mean,
doesn't make any sense.
Right, it doesn't. So, I mean, are you, that's the question, right?
Sure. So,
Yeah.
our intent, the planning department's intent, was
Mhm.
to take the changes to the resolution that you all are considering
Right.
tonight and implement those countywide, including in the city, and
Okay.
report that same material to the city, really honestly
Okay.
independent of whether or not the city
Okay.
council adopts this revised resolution. And then what we report to you, of course, will be community-wide. We can segregate it city and county, but we will report it county-wide. In order to have the accountability to the city council, just like we have to you all, I think it would be beneficial to have them adopt it. Obviously, we need to get feedback from the administration.
And they may want to make.
Council members, and I haven't done, I want to be very clear, I haven't done that
Right.
at this point, but
Yeah.
I do think it's superior and that they should go ahead and adopt it.
Okay. Well, great. All right. So we'll leave it up to you then to bring that to joint city-county. On the issue of just environmental impacts, I wasn't clear on how we were going to track those. I guess, do you have any thoughts on how that would be tracked?
Sure. So the first thing we were going to do is work with primarily our city sister departments that look at those impacts now, that do repairs to city streets, that respond to stormwater complaints, for example, and just ensure that we are working with those departments to track both the capital projects that they plan and then the response to complaints that they have, matching them up with where these EHC properties are being developed. And that's kind of a low-hanging fruit, essentially looking at where there's an overlap between existing programs to respond to infrastructure and environmental issues and where the EHC is developed. I think what I would say, if you'd indulge me for just a moment, is, and there'll be a lot more conversation in this regard through the comprehensive plan, is we're at a point with a lot of our urban tier infrastructure that we need to reinvest in that infrastructure anyway, independently of increased density. The urban tier was developed largely, almost solely, prior to stormwater controls. And the city has a $9 million a year stormwater utility that may have to be more focused on some of those issues,
Right.
along with other sources of funds.
Right.
So that's part of the conversation we'll have with the comp plan. So anyway, thank you for tolerating that. But
Yeah.
we will absolutely start with looking at those existing programs that track environmental and infrastructure impacts and match it up with the HCE impact.
Okay. And can you just clarify, Pat, so for things like building ADUs, there won't have to be any kind of sedimentation and control. People won't have to do a plan or anything like that. Is that right? What happens for permitting for things like this?
Sure. So 1 and 2 family development, including ADUs today, is already exempt from stormwater
Okay.
control under 12,000 square feet of development, which is the vast majority of new development.
Right.
So we're not changing that.
Right.
But as your previous question alluded to, we certainly acknowledge there could be impacts. So we're going
Right.
to track and monitor those impacts. And as Commissioner Carter alluded to, we did embed for the first time ever in Durham County or Durham City requirements that will hopefully help offset or mitigate those impacts. Even though they're exempt, we're going to require an additional tree be planted, that there be ribbon or narrow driveways, and that there be no downspout connection directly to the street. So hopefully those things together will mitigate.
Well, this is not for, you to answer now, but I just wondered if all of the collective, agencies that work on this, if there are any proactive things that people could do that, we could at least, when people came in for permits, for instance, for ADUs, that, here are some best practices of things that you can do to help protect our watershed. These are more just guidance for people. These are obviously voluntary, but when we think about the impacts too, on the one hand, we want to improve our environment by having more density and less people being able to use transit more, or walking or bikes. But if there are things that we could do that could be very simple things that people could do while they're building, or, to protect their trees or prevent the soil from running off. I'm just wondering if there's, for you all to think about, as we're going to help people with the ADUs, the plan is to try to make it easy and have plans for people and simplify it. It may be just something else that we include with that information. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Sure, thank you, Chair Jacobs.
Yeah.
If I might quickly respond, as you're well aware, that both the city and the county have excellent environmental education programs, and one of the long list of partners and stakeholders that we've had to be our next stop is working with them to get information and material that when someone comes in for an EHC eligible house, that we go through opportunities for things like rain gardens and rain barrels that are available to everybody, but
Right.
really focusing on mitigating those impacts.
Right. Okay, great. I think we're all ready to close the public hearing, but I just want to say that I do think I agree with Commissioner Carter that, and I think the rest of our board is comfortable now with moving forward with, I think we've improved this text amendment with the monitoring guidelines that we've added, and it's just a necessity at this point that we look at what's happening in our community, that we do something, even if it is incremental. I think it still will have important impacts when we have predominantly single-family zoning in the city today. Well, not actually as of October 1st, not. But I do want to echo what Commissioner Carter said, that it's really important that the housing bond passes, because there's a lot of connections between programs to support the affordable housing choice that are tied into the housing bond. Things like people having money to repair their homes, funds available so that people can, that help support affordable housing developers and land trusts. Plans to develop a template or a whole program for ADUs. This is all in the affordable housing bond. So I think we need to remember that there's a whole group of programs associated with it that are really dependent on that bond passing. Hopefully that will soon be in place as well. I'm now going to close the public hearing, and just to get clear on what we have before us.
You ready for the first motion?
Go
Are
for
we
it.
ready for the first motion?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I move to adopt the appropriate statement of consistency pursuant to NCGS 153A-341.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Howard and seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion is unanimously approved. We have a second motion.
To adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance, incorporating revisions, Article 4, zoning district, Article 5, use regulations, 6, district intensity standard, Article 7, design standards, Article 4, requirements for subdivision, Article 14, nonconformities, and Article 17, definition.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Carter, seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is unanimously approved.
And I'll do the third motion to adopt a resolution regarding the development and reporting of metrics for expanding housing choices. And in this case, we're adopting the substitute resolution prepared by Durham County that includes the more extensive list of metrics and the review after 3 years.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Howard. And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the third motion is unanimously approved. Okay, thank you. And I really want to recognize Pat and all of your staff. You've been working on this for a long time, and a lot of thought and effort has gone into this. So thank you to everyone.
Well, thank you for those kind words, and it's really all of our wonderful staff and great input and feedback you all help provide us, and of course, our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, one more. TC 18000005 Unified Development Ordinance Text Amendment for Tree Coverage and Landscaping.
Thank you again, Michael Stock with the Planning Department. Text Amendment TC 1805 is a series of changes to Unified Development Ordinance intended to increase the preservation of existing trees and to minimize the effects of mass grading. Some of the key provisions in this amendment include increasing the instances where natural project boundary buffers are required and incentivizing the use of natural rather than planted buffers in other circumstances, increased buffer width requirements in suburban tier along rights of way and when mass grading is used in residential developments, change in tree coverage requirements in the suburban tier to require preservation of existing trees and only allow replacement when existing trees are not readily available to satisfy that minimum requirement. Increased tree coverage requirements for all uses in the urban tier, additional tree planting on residential lots. And then also in addition to these changes, the Planning Department in conjunction with the city's general services and public works departments is working on, and with the help with Trees Durham, which is a nonprofit organization devoted to maintaining and increasing the tree canopy for all of Durham City and County, to develop a pilot program for new streets in the suburban tier in which street trees will be required within the right-of-way. So you'll see a text amendment with that probably midway next year as we work through the parameters of costs and such with implementing that new infrastructure within the right-of-way. This will be brought back as a separate text amendment. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 10-1 at its February meeting, and City Council approved the amendments at its October 21st meeting. Again, as a reminder, the Board of Commissioners will be required to take two actions. First would be the appropriate statement of consistency found in Attachment A, and the second would be an action on the ordinance amendment itself, Attachment B. Thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Recco?
So with that different approach, which I applaud on street trees, have all the requirements for street trees been removed in terms of, I mean, is there anything left in terms of amending our street tree approach? Because the summary talks about
some changes to
some modifying requirements for street trees.
There are some changes to the current street tree standards and specifically requiring slightly more street trees when you're using understory trees instead of canopy trees.
Okay,
So
so that's the only
That was left
change.
in. That was in the original version
Okay.
too. But the bulk of the changes
Were
requiring in
removed.
the right-of-way
Okay.
are being reserved for a future text.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Carter?
I don't have a question, but I just would say that I'm excited about this proposed text amendment, these text amendment changes here. And I think that the folks that are members of Trees Durham are just fantastic. And I liked their recommendations. I went to their forum that they recently had, and it was really excellent. And I think that I'll just call out Katie Rose, the executive director, is just super smart and passionate and really committed to this and really does a good job. So whatever they wanted and their recommendations, I hope that we get all of that eventually.
And that's who we've been working with primarily, with Katie Rose in particular, and she's been very helpful in bringing to light and moving this forward and helping us too. And it's issues, especially with street trees and right-of-ways, that we've been interested in doing anyway, and she's been providing valuable information for us to get it moving.
Fantastic. Great.
Well, I just want to echo what Commissioner Carter said. I think this is a great example of a community-led initiative that has impacted public policy, because it's really thanks to their work and their advocacy, and then their support for the staff that we're really making these policy changes. So it's one of these, when you're looking for examples of where the community has really made a difference and has had direct impact, this is a great example. So I am disappointed that we are still not moving forward with trees in the right-of-way.
Right.
At this point. There were, in the Planning Commission comments, that was what you saw over and over again with Planning Commission members. And I guess what I'd like to understand is if people want to put trees in the right-of-way right now, especially with new developments, can they?
The current ordinance does allow for that provision upon approval by Public Works Department, so it's not an absolute no. Whenever it's rarely requested, but when it has been requested, it's generally been provided for. The reason why it's not in, these changes are not in the ordinance right now, and it was discussed with Trees Durham, Katie Rose in particular, to kind of step back from it, was because of the additional work that was needed upon the city's part to not only understand the cost of maintaining the inspection, the plans review, and the ongoing long-term maintenance of approximately 2,500 trees a year that would be placed in the right-of-way based upon current baseline standards that we provided to general services, plus the additional consideration of new street cross-sections, because unfortunately we're starting to lose our own authority over what we can put in the right-of-way or how we regulate right-of-way, especially with wireless communication facilities being placed in the right-of-way, and how the planting of trees conflicts or trying not to conflict with utilities that are placed within the right-of-way. So the right-of-way is getting crowded, and we need to plan accordingly. So when we do plant these trees in the right-of-way, they have a better chance of being healthy, and the maintenance is moderate at best.
But we're really losing out because, when you look at what's happening in downtown Durham with new developments, especially south of, Main Street, and, we're losing opportunities to have a gateway of trees when you come in on our major corridors. And you see the new developments are pushing them back. I don't know, it's just, I know it's not our issue. It's not, we don't have authority over this, but, others.
Actually, just not meaning to cut you off,
Yes.
I'll qualify what I said before.
Yeah.
In design districts, we do have the reverse. So that's when right-of-way, street trees are required to be in the right-of-way, and then you need to seek special approval outside of it. What you see a lot of times when it's not in the right-of-way is because it's an NCDOT maintained road, and they have place special parameters on the street, the trees.
So is Roxborough an NCDOT road? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then maybe that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, Durham is, a lot of streets are actually NCDOT roads, surprisingly.
Okay. Then that must be the problem. Oh, well. But anyway, I hope this gets resolved soon because it's really important. And it's, I see when I go into other cities like Charlotte where they have, or even in Raleigh, they're planting trees in the right of way. And it really makes a difference. So
Yeah.
I hope that can be addressed as soon as possible. Let's see. I think it's really important, the root zone protections that are in here, because, we see it over and over again, that if you don't protect the root zones, then it doesn't even matter because the tree's going to die at some point. How do you feel like you all are going to be able to monitor this? It seems like it's, will the planning staff actually be the ones to monitor is the root zone being protected? are the trees being planted that need to be planted? Do they survive? Do they need to be replanted?
Those are all done through site plan review, and it's
Okay.
being done now.
Yeah.
Any site plan or subdivision that requires, whether it's street trees right now or any kind of tree planting, and you're preserving the trees and you want to receive credit for those trees, you do have root zone protection standards that have to be demonstrated on those plans, and those are also inspected.
Okay. So one of the planning commissioners said that they were concerned that this was not extending to compact neighborhoods. Could you explain why we're not doing that?
Right now, we are focusing on the primary development in terms of where there's lots of room to accommodate trees in areas that provide the best tree canopy are in the residential areas out in the suburban and rural tiers predominantly. Compact neighborhood tiers are meant for a much more intense, more urban form. There are additional open space. There are tree requirements for compact neighborhood tiers, especially for the design districts, and other compact neighborhood tiers still have, whether they're different zoning districts or not, still have other tree parking lot landscaping standards that still provide tree coverage.
I don't know. It seems like, I don't know. I don't really get that because with the compact neighborhood and the design districts and those, we have the opportunity again we're kind of rebuilding. A lot of times it could be what was suburban. I'm thinking of Patterson Place.
And they have additional open space standards that accommodate for and are designed for additional tree coverage.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Those standards that were just approved, those have enhanced over what was currently for 9th Street or down.
Okay, Commissioner Recco.
I just have to chime in. We've been going back and forth on this now for a long time, and I'll always remember when Bob Chapman wanted to build the housing just north of East Campus, and the city wasn't allowing him to put the trees in the right-of-way, and he just felt to do what he wanted to do in terms of the design and style of that walkable infill development that he put in there. He needed the street trees in the right-of-way, and I and a couple of council members went to bat for him, and he ended up making it through the gauntlet in engineering and getting those street trees in. And you go back now, 15 years later, where those trees are now getting pretty mature, and it makes such a difference in the character of that neighborhood that it really strikes me when the chair brought up the compact neighborhoods, because compact neighborhoods, we're allowing higher density, and the whole idea is walkable neighborhoods so that people hopefully will be able to access transit. Now, as you know, to then require them to walk on hot, sunny sidewalks instead of tree-lined sidewalks is crazy. And I would just say that this is something that there's a real disconnect between what we seem to want to do, and if you look at pictures even of walkable neighborhoods, you will never see pictures in Urban Land Institute magazine or anywhere else without trees in that strip between the curb and the sidewalk. Not only does it make it feel better on a hot day to be in some shade, but it's also safer for the pedestrian, because if the car goes off the road, they're more likely to hit a tree as opposed to a person. And I'd rather have them hit the tree rather than a person. But I'm just saying, I don't understand why we can't get to a point where we're allowing trees more liberally.
And I apologize, I probably did come across clearly. We still require street trees in the right-of-way for the compact neighborhood tier. And that didn't change, and the requirement actually has increased with this text amendment for the one, if you're doing understory trees. And with the Patterson Place, and it's even more important because of the Patterson Place, sorry, it's been late in my mouth. There have been additional standards for their support 2 areas where they allow for a more residential type feel where what you're saying comes into play even more. Those were not taken out. Those were maintained.
Okay, so that makes me feel a little better. So what you're saying then is, so how about in our urban tier where the EHC is focused, will people building new housing in the urban tier have to put in trees between the sidewalk and the curb or not?
No. So what's going to be coming forward in the future that we've worked out with Trees Durham is a pilot program for residential development for new streets in the suburban tier because of and right now the city actually has a program of putting street trees, probably 1,500 around a year within urban neighborhoods. So there's a difference between dealing with existing streets and the infrastructure that's already in place versus the ability to accommodate with new streets where you're starting from scratch and putting the trees in the right-of-way. So we're trying to take a measured, very concerted approach with trees in the right-of-way at this point, which working with Trees Durham, and they understood that.
Okay. Well, all I can say is I'm glad that at least we're making a little progress because I think ultimately our neighborhoods will benefit if and I think we'll encourage people to move about, walking if they can go out on shady streets. It makes such a difference. Yes. I'm a big walker, and I know, particularly in the summer, my paths, I veer towards the places where I can stay in shade.
Absolutely.
Because who wants to be broiling in the hot sun, right? Okay, well, enough of that. I'm proud that at our Health and Human Services building, we have a perimeter of trees now that have really grown up nicely. And on the side of the building, not the Main Street side, because that's naturally shaded largely by the building, but on the Dillard Street side, you walk down that side of the building now, and if we hadn't planted those trees, you'd be in sun, and instead you're in shade, and it's delightful.
And those were per ordinance requirements. Along Dillard Street, it's a city street. We had street tree requirements. They were be in the right of way, and they were done per ordinance.
Right. So, okay.
I just have one thing.
Yes, Commissioner Howerton.
I hope we'll pay just as much attention to low-income communities as we do others, as far as trees in the right-of-way or in other areas. That would just, normally, we have kind of forgotten areas that in the low income, and we need to not continue to do that.
Commissioner Echo, thank you. Commissioner Howerton, thank you for your comments. And I want to just give some credit to my colleagues with the city. Michael alluded to the fact that the city's planning over 1,500. I don't have the exact number. We'll share that under separate cover. Trees in the right-of-way, almost exclusively in East Durham and Southeast Durham, to try to remediate that historical relic of racism and unequal treatment, to try to get that same canopy established that you see in parts of the urban tier in North Durham and West Durham. So thank you for that comment. We'll absolutely keep that in mind, and the city in its efforts is really trying to overcome that historical issue.
And I'll add,
thank you.
Trees Durham is doing the same thing. I noticed that there were all these new trees planted out of the Haytie Cultural Center, and it turns out the Trees Durham planted all those trees. So they're also joining in on that. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we have 2 motions before us.
So I'll do the first motion, adopt the appropriate
Oh, I never
statement.
opened it. I never opened it. I never opened it. Okay, thank you.
It is a public
It is or not?
hearing. It is a public hearing.
It is a public hearing.
Okay,
Mhm.
so I'm going to open the public hearing. And seeing there's no one signed up to speak, I'm going to close the public hearing. But it was good that you said that, Wendell, because you reminded me that I didn't actually even open it. Okay, so now we have 2 motions before us.
So I'll do the first motion to adopt the appropriate statement of consistency pursuant to NCGS 153A341.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Reckow, seconded by Commissioner Howerton. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's unanimously approved. We have a second motion.
I'll do the second one. I move to adopt an ordinance amending the Unified Development Ordinance, incorporating revisions to amend Article 4, zoning districts, Article 8, environmental protection, Article 9, landscaping and buffering, and Article 17, definitions.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Howard and seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The second motion is unanimously approved. Okay, last item tonight
Thank
is...
you.
Thank you. Last item we have is board and commission appointments.
Okay. All right. I looked it up.
You check those other.
We got to be here early in the morning. Get sleep. Yes. Better about my voice still. Yeah. Where I talk.
Madam Chair, I've got the results.
Thank you.
I've got the results for your votes. The Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, you can select one person, and you've selected Tamario House. For the Board of Adjustment, you can select one person. You've selected Micah Jeter. For the Community Child Protection, Child Fatality Prevention Team, you can select one person. You've selected Kibwe G. Mudawa. For the Discover Durham Tourism Development Authority, you could select two individuals. You selected Daniel Edwards and Jonathan Stewart. For the Industrial Facilities and Pollution Control Financing Authority, you can select one person. You've selected Andrew Holland. For the Workforce Development Board, you can select two individuals, and you've selected James Austin and Ashley McKenna. Those are your results.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Howerton, seconded by Commissioner Reckow. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are unanimously adjourned.
Anybody opposed, we'll beat them up.